Hello, my name is Reginald Bullock, author of Father to Son, A Guide to Growing Up in a Difficult World. This next chapter, The Game. There are so many ways I can go with this chapter, and in my next book, I definitely take off and run with it in a more enlightened, educational, and experienced manner than I was in 1994. But the game, right? No matter what you do in life, whether you're trying to buy a car, it's a game. You gotta understand how to play that game. Going to school, to achieve the teacher's favor. They're human beings, right? So why'd they get an A and you get a B? And y'all both did the same stuff. It's the game. Politics is the game. You know, does everybody have the opportunity to become a four-star general? Or is it a matter how you play the game? And when does that game start? Does it start when you go to the Air Force Academy? I said Air Force Academy. ROTC, less people become generals in ROTC than at the Air Force Academy. You go to Air Force Academy, you got a clear shot to becoming a general. You go to Lackland Air Force Base basic training as an E1, you got a slim chance of becoming a general. But all of you in the Air Force. So how do you play the game and win, right? We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Man, in that are the rules to the game. The Constitution are the rules to the game. And every last one of us U.S. citizens fall under those rules. You want to win the game? Know the rules. Learn the rules. Study the rules. And then start playing that game and get good at it. Master the game. That's the only way you're going to win. But in this chapter, I do break it down from a black man's perspective. Talk about Black Lives Matter. I went through some experiences, and here I am. So enjoy the chapter.
Chapter 14, The Game. Is government politics, or is politics government? Some would argue that they both are one and the same, while others would concede that they are inseparable. Nevertheless, the one thing that is for certain is that both government and politics have a profound impact on your life, and to a large degree, how you are allowed to live it. This is why you must approach how you navigate through life as if you are trying to win a game. Certainly, you cannot play a game if you do not understand the rules. Once you have learned the rules, you can begin to play. Like most games, your desire is to win, or at least not to lose, so you generally play to win. Unfortunately, sometimes the rules change. This is where a true master of the game is separated from a novice. A true master of the game not only knows the rules, he knows how to use them in his favor and against you. A true master of the game is, in actuality, a master of the rules. He does not follow the rules that are spelled out as most good players do. He studies the rules as opposed to studying the game. Once he has mastered the art of studying the rules, then he is in the position to change them. A true master of the rules can change them in his favor and even have you agree with him. A true master is a thinker, not just a player. In the game of life, there are many players, but only a few masters. Similar to the way there are many have-nots, but only a few haves. In this chapter, I'm going to give you an insight into what I call the game. Others have termed it the game of life. I'm going to take what you have already seen, heard, tasted, smelled, or felt in your own life and present it back to you differently. Since you are a player in this game, I would advise you to play to win. That means learn the rules and think. Preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. The preamble is the introduction to the Constitution. It states reason and purpose. The Constitution is, as the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used to call it, a social-political document. This document of ours contains all the rules to the game. The problem is that most United States citizens do not understand the rules. As a matter of fact, many citizens have never even read the preamble. I highly recommend that you read the Constitution. As a matter of fact, you need to read the entire document from beginning to end. Although you will not understand all that you read, you will learn a lot from its contents. I also recommend that you reacquaint yourself with the Constitution at least once every 5 years to allow your 5 years increment experiences to help you learn more than you did the last time you read it. In learning the rules, you must also learn to analyze the information from the author's original intent. This takes practice, diligence, and experience. However, once you are able to comprehend your new abilities, a new world begins to open up to you. Once you are able to understand the origin of the information, then you can apply it to the present. The preamble can be understood or misunderstood. Depending on who is reading it and for what reason they are reading it, thousands of meanings can be derived from it. Let us look at it from a struggling African-American man's frame of reference and see what happens. We, the people of the United States. Who? Who are we in We the People? On the first Wednesday of March, 1789, which is when the government under the Constitution was declared in effect, blacks were still slaves. So who is the we referring to? Blacks were not even considered citizens during those times. Therefore, given all present knowledge of past history, it would be a safe assumption that we was not counting blacks as a part of the United States. If that is the case, then it is also safe to assume that this document was written with a European mentality. Like owning dogs, horses, and cattle, blacks in 1789 were still considered as property. This mentality is the basis for the rules that we are, as United States citizens, obligated to follow. In order to form a more perfect union, first of all, no person, place, or thing is perfect. With the exception of God and God's creation, nothing is perfect. This leaves the question of how can any God-fearing human being bring his cerebral process to the point of thinking he is perfect? The second fact that really makes me question what kind of thought process our so-called forefathers used is that they wanted to form a more perfect union than the perfect union they allegedly already possessed. Looking at the two phrases we have already used, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, you should by now be able to surface useful information from your own subconscious to enable you to begin to understand the rules of the game. As I stated earlier, thousands of meanings can be derived from it. I am only trying to help you understand how to learn and use the rules of the game, not interpret them all for you. Establish justice. Just us? Who? What? Where? Why? When? Which? How? This is how you need to approach this phrase. We know the who part. However, what kind of justice were they trying to establish and for what reason? I guess establishing the justice was part of the plan to form the more perfect union. Since there are several types of justice, the which question is also very valid here. Poetic justice, communistic, democratic, racial, medieval, which? These are all valid questions that the rules should spell out clearly so that there is no room for interpretation. These are the types of questions that you must have the answers to in order to understand the rules. How was the justice established? Did they kill everyone who did not agree so that the Constitution would be ratified? Did they bribe the ones who disagreed? Did they publicly lynch or burn the opposition as was customary to those who went against the establishment? Did they request the expertise of slaves so that blacks would also embrace this new document that has been the #1 governing factor in the United States for over 200 years? If questions like these do not pop into your mind, then maybe your brain should be rewashed. for it is the answers to these questions which hold the key to your fairy mystery. Ensure domestic tranquility. Tranquility means quietness, a calm state, freedom from disturbance or agitation, the state or quality of being tranquil. Again, the same basic questions apply. Who, what, where, why, when, which, how. The how and why questions are where I think the most revealing information will be found. Another fact that stands out like a sore thumb is the preamble specifically stated domestic tranquility as an important fact. If the oath of office for many politicians is to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, why are we trying to ensure foreign tranquility while failing at ensuring domestic tranquility? Although I do understand the reasons for foreign policies, I would never pay everyone else's bills while the creditors are pounding on my door, ringing my phone and sending me overdue notices. How can I feed everyone else while my own children are starving? I must first clean up my own house before I can help clean someone else's. Not only is it constitutional, it is common sense. Yet, we are failing in this category by leaps and bounds. Where is the tranquility? As a United States citizen, we pay our public servants, politicians, to ensure that our rights are being upheld. Therefore, just like terminating any employee who continues to demonstrate lack of performance or noncompliance in the position or duties in which they are assigned, they too should be terminated. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say the employee is to control their employer when incompetence has been established on the employee's part. When the slaves or servants demonstrated incompetence, lack of performance, or noncompliance, they were publicly whipped until they changed, or were killed if they would not change. My, how the table is turned. Look at this phrase as it relates to the state of our country. It should demonstrate to you how much we adhere to our Constitution. It is a crime that we do not have domestic tranquility. Many people are in violation of that crime from the top down and are not being held accountable for their responsibilities. Provide for the common defense. Why do we provide for the common defense? What is a common defense in the first place? If it is so common, then why is it so difficult to understand? Ask 20 people today, what is a common defense? I bet you will get 20 different answers. I served close to 10 years active duty in the United States Air Force, and I am not even sure what a common defense is. I even raised my hand and took an oath. Yet there are stated provisions in the preamble to provide for a common defense in order to form a more perfect union. Perhaps it was meant to be confusing. Given the information gathered so far, it seems that a lot is involved in forming a more perfect union. I am also starting to wonder when and if this more perfect union was ever achieved and how long it maintained its more perfect union status. After all, I am a United States citizen, and I am entitled to a more perfect union, especially if the United States government is entitled to my money in the form of taxes. Or is it? Taxes. That is another book. In taking a serious look at the common defense, I would say that there are a lot of people failing at their job. There are far too many innocent people dying because their common defense is not being provided for. People are not just dying from natural causes anymore. They are dying from gunshots, drugs, toxic waste, governmental special projects, low self-esteem, poverty, neglect, starvation, homelessness, and environmental non-protection. Why? Because we are not being defended properly. As the saying goes, never send a boy to do a man's job. He'll just come back a boy, whereas a man will come back with results. We need results. Promote the general welfare. The condition of health, prosperity, and happiness, well-being. This is what welfare is. Somewhere along the lines of interpretation, I think this was misinterpreted. Our government has abused promoting the general welfare ever since the ratification of the Constitution. I guess because no one stopped them. Nevertheless, it is important to continue to understand that most of the phrases in the preamble hinge upon forming a more perfect union, which is a mentality that should not be. Perhaps that is why it took so many years before we finally put on our U.S. currency, "In God We Trust." Apparently, some of our country's founding forefathers did not trust in God, or did they think they were equal to God? And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. At first glance, the average reader will not really understand this phrase. In dissecting just the word liberty, you will learn that from that word alone, the Constitution of the United States was not written with the African American in mind at all. It did not apply to us. Therefore, the input, the contribution, the emotional state, philosophies, the genetic blueprint, and the balance of the African mentality was deliberately omitted from the Constitution. On that note, one could contend that the Constitution was written with extreme bias and prejudice. Perhaps that is why it is so difficult to defend in this era. Perhaps that is why so many people have a blatant disregard for its values. Perhaps that is why Mike Tyson went to jail for rape while others did not. Maybe that is why African Americans appear to be treated unjustly and unequally when it comes to the judicial system. They had no input in its construction. The word liberty means freedom or release from slavery, imprisonment, captivity, or any other form of arbitrary control. When a person's constitutional rights are found to be violated, generally some sort of acceptable restitution is made. How can the United States government make an acceptable restitution to an entire nation of people whose constitutional rights were and continue to be so freely, openly, and blatantly violated? Impossible? No, it is not impossible. It may be unlikely, but not impossible. If we can provide billions of dollars to other countries, then we can provide restitution to those United States citizens whose ancestral generations have been constitutionally violated. Not only was the Constitution designed to secure the blessings of liberty to themselves, but also their posterity. Posterity means all of a person's descendants. To argue the fact that slavery happened long ago and there is nothing that we can do to change what happened in the past is a very politically correct statement. To say that we cannot do anything because of the past is a lie. We are the ancestors of victimized, abused, molested, violated, raped, manipulated, hindered, impaired, exploited, brutalized, demoralized, and plagiarized United States citizens. Where is the posterity of that liberty? Why is there such a large difference between the haves and the have-nots? Why has there never been a black president? Look at the percentage of whites versus the percentage of blacks in the United States, and statistically speaking, based on the percentage and not racism, there should have been at least 15 presidents and vice presidents of color. Where does the liberty and posterity truly lie? It is obvious. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. To decree, to order, to establish, and to enact is what ordain means. Blacks could not even vote then, let alone read, so who ordained and established it, and for whom? Indeed, it would be a remarkable accomplishment to truly uphold the Constitution of the United States and its values. Although it is clear that the Constitution was designed, drafted, and ratified without thought of blacks being anything other than property, let alone free United States citizens, the fact of the matter is African Americans are United States citizens and are entitled to the identical rights, benefits, and privileges that our Constitution affords to the posterity of its drafters. Perhaps that is why there are groups advocating white supremacy. They know that once the African American is able to interpret the Constitution correctly, an enlightening evolution will occur. This evolution will decrease the white power, money, and status. As I stated earlier, you have to learn the rules of the game. The Constitution of the United States is the rules of the game of being a United States citizen. Out of the thousands of words that make up the Constitution, I only used 51 to show you that there is more to the rules than meets the eye. As mentioned earlier, I chose to look at the preamble for a struggling African American man's frame of reference to see what happens. It can be looked at from a woman's point of view, a child's point of view, a foreigner's frame of reference, etc. In doing so, I would like to point out that I do not hold the present government responsible for our past. I do, however, hold it responsible for upholding the Constitution and performing in its elected and appointed positions as outlined in the Constitution. That's accountability. In contrast to our Constitution, if you were to travel and live in another country, you would find a different set of rules to the same game. For instance, you could steal something in the United States, go to jail, and be back on the streets that same day, only to repeat the crime again. You may even repeat this process of going in and out of jail as a way of life. In Saudi Arabia, however, you could have your right hand chopped off for theft. Not only could you have your hand chopped off, you could have your head chopped off for committing a crime. Different values, different morals, and different cultures establish different ways of governing themselves. Whether you travel to Africa, Europe, Asia, or the Middle East, you will encounter a different set of rules to the game. If you know the rules, you can play the game. If you master the rules, you can win. Keeping in mind, as stated in the chapter on communication, you should also learn the languages of the different countries you may travel to. That is one of the first rules of the game. If you cannot understand what is being said, you might as well not even try to play. I've been to several countries where I witnessed and heard about acts, incidents, and situations which might be considered illegal in the United States. I have seen women topless in public at an outdoor cafe while eating lunch. I have watched hash and marijuana being smoked in public places openly and freely because it was legal in that country. I have witnessed prostitutes working their guild in public just like any other working person. They were even registered with the state as prostitutes because it was an occupation. I have been passed by cars on the highway doing well over 100 miles per hour. As a matter of fact, if I were to have been hit in the rear, it would have been my fault for not moving over in time for the other car to pass me. I have seen the results from a police officer punching a man in the nose to collect blood for a blood alcohol test because the man refused to cooperate. I have been to weddings where it is customary to shoot off guns every time new guests arrive. All these experiences and more might be considered unconstitutional or against the law in the United States. However, in other countries, it is considered normal and within the law. As with the United States Constitution, there are rules to everything you will encounter. The difference between the person who gets an A in school and the person who gets a B or C is not always because of how smart he or she is or is not. In many cases, it is because one understood the rules to the game better than the other. At my first college, I graduated at the associate's level with a 2.32 GPA. At another college, I graduated at the baccalaureate level with a 3.69 GPA. Although I was the same person, the major difference in my GPA increase came from a better understanding of the game. Yes, I did learn more, and yes, I did study smarter, but it was all attributed to my having a deeper understanding of the game of education and its rules. Had I known and understood those rules as a young child, I might be a lot farther in my academic achievement. Hopefully, you will not commit the same errors I have committed educationally. Additionally, in all working environments, there are obvious rules to the game and not so obvious rules to the game. It is the person who understands these rules that generally surpasses everyone else. I have heard all sorts of name-calling of these types of people. Loners, brown-nosers, workaholics, fast burners, etc. But seldom have I heard them called achievers. Yet that is what most of them are, achievers. They want to better their condition in life. They want to provide more for their families. They want to achieve what their abilities say they are capable of achieving. All work and no play makes Reggie a dull boy. Generally, play is where you begin to learn the games and develop your competitiveness. If you are playing sports, you have to know the rules or you will lose. In video games, you have to know how to operate the controls, score points, and not lose your man. There are magazines published specifically for teaching one how to win at the video games. Once you have mastered the video games, the knowledge learned can be transferred into real-life situations. Your decision-making process and strategic approaches to winning the video game are very similar to winning other games. All you have to do is master the rules. No matter where you are, what you do, or who you are, you will have to learn the rules to many of life's games if you want to succeed. It takes more than just a desire to learn and understand these rules, but a desire is where you begin. Over time, hopefully, you will learn to master these rules. Although the true rules and meanings to these rules may be considered secrets, and in some cases veiled in allegory, they are still right in front of your face. Through deep thought and reflection on your own experiences, in conjunction with the experiences of the many who have walked the path you have yet to walk, the light on that path can become brighter. It is up to you to decide if you are ready to master the game. It is up to you to decide if you are ready to win the game. The game of life has been and always will be there waiting for you to play. You are in it for life.